It was a dark and silent night, perfect for a quiet trip through the countryside. The stars were hidden by thick clouds, and the moon, shy, barely showed itself, casting a veil of darkness over the landscape. The winding road cut through the uninhabited fields, and the only sounds that could be heard were John's tires on the asphalt and the faint rumble of the engine. John, a young man in his 20s, drove calmly down the deserted road, enjoying the serenity of the night. He liked these nighttime journeys, where he could reflect on life and escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The headlights illuminated only a few meters ahead, creating a tunnel of darkness around him. The feeling of being alone in the world calmed him, until something unexpected happened. Suddenly, John saw a figure by the roadside, a young woman frantically waving for help. John's heart raced. Who could this woman be? And why was she there alone in the middle of nowhere? Without thinking twice, he slammed on the brakes, and the woman ran toward him, tears in her eyes and a trembling voice, pleading for a ride. She explained that she needed urgent help for her husband, who was trapped in the wreckage of a car that had fallen beside the road. The emotion in her voice and the urgency in her gestures made John forget any fear. He opened the passenger door and helped her in. The woman got into the car, thanking him profusely, with a mix of relief and desperation on her face. She asked him to drive to the nearest hospital or police station, anywhere they could get quick help. John pressed the accelerator, determined to reach the destination as fast as possible. As he drove, he tried to calm her down with questions about her life, hoping to distract her from the impending tragedy. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to keep the conversation going. "Anna," she replied, her voice still shaky. John continued asking questions but noticed her answers were short and evasive. There was something about her that seemed off. As the minutes passed, John couldn't shake off a strange feeling that was growing inside him. The temperature inside the car began to drop rapidly, forcing John to turn on the heater to combat the sudden and inexplicable cold. He looked at Anna, who remained silent and introspective, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. A chill ran down his spine. What was happening? Why had the temperature dropped so much? And why did he feel there was something more to this woman than met the eye? The night, which had been serene and calm, now seemed laden with an unsettling mystery as John accelerated into the darkness, with the growing sense that his journey was about to take an unexpected and frightening turn. The drive to the police station felt endless. Every kilometer seemed to stretch on forever, with the tension in the air rising with each passing minute. The woman beside John remained in almost complete silence, her eyes fixed on the road ahead, never once looking away. The darkness outside, punctuated only by the occasional streetlight, heightened the feeling of isolation and urgency. Finally, upon seeing the flashing lights of the station, John felt a brief wave of relief wash over him. He parked the car abruptly, almost skidding, and rushed inside the building, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside the station, John desperately told the story to the officer on duty, his words spilling out quickly, almost without pause for breath. He described the woman, the accident, the urgent need for help. To his surprise, the officer seemed uninterested and detached, almost as if he were hearing a trivial story. The others present also appeared to ignore the emergency, busy with their own tasks, indifferent to the drama John was trying to convey. Frustration began to build within him, impatience making his blood boil. How could they be so apathetic in the face of something so serious? John was starting to lose his patience when finally an older police officer approached. The man, with a calm and experienced look, suggested that John go back to the car to check if the woman was still there. Confused and anxious, John ran back to the car, his mind spinning with unanswered questions. To his astonishment, the woman had disappeared without a trace. He looked around frantically, searching for any sign of her, but there was nothing. It was as if she had never been there. The sense of unreality overwhelmed him, mixing fear and confusion. The officer who had suggested the check left the station and approached John, holding an old yellowed newspaper clipping. He showed John the photo in the clipping and asked if it was the same woman he had seen. With a lump in his throat, John nodded, his eyes fixed on the image. The officer then explained that the newspaper dated back many years and told the story of a tragic accident that had killed a couple just a few kilometers from there. The woman, whose face now seemed to haunt John, had been one of the victims. The officer's words echoed in John's mind, bringing an intense cold that seemed to come from deep within his soul. Reality distorted around him, turning the night into a scene of mystery and inexplicable terror. Swallowing hard, John slowly returned to the car, still incredulous at what had just happened. Incredulity and fear mixed in his chest as he tried to process the surreal reality he had just experienced. The officer followed him, maintaining a serious and concerned expression. Before John got in the car, the officer warned him with a grave tone, almost like a dark warning. "Avoid this road in the future. The second encounter with the woman rarely ends well." These words resonated in John's mind like a distant echo, heavy with ominous foretelling. John got into the car, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the steering wheel. With his heart racing, he started the engine. The road, which had once seemed peaceful, was now full of shadows and mysteries. Every curve, every dark stretch seemed to hide unfathomable secrets. He knew he would never forget that night and the desperate woman he had encountered on the road. Her image, with eyes full of terror and tears, was etched in his mind like an invisible scar. The road seemed to stretch infinitely ahead of him, and John drove in silence, reflecting on the supernatural encounter. Every kilometer seemed to take a piece of his peace of mind with it. The trees lining the road, once just part of the landscape, now seemed like sinister figures watching him. The story of the couple in the newspaper clipping echoed in his mind, blending with the image of the woman who had vanished. The officer's warning was clear and frightening. John swore to himself that he would never return to that road, no matter how urgent the reason. The inexplicable cold of that night and the woman's desperate gaze would forever be etched in his memory. When he arrived home, John was still trembling. He got out of the car slowly, as if at any moment he might wake up from a nightmare. He knew the experience would mark him forever. For days, he mentally revisited every detail, trying to find a rational explanation for what he had experienced. He recalled every word spoken, every glance exchanged, searching for some logic that might calm his restless mind. But deep down, he knew that some things simply have no explanation. The deserted road and the desperate young woman became personal legends, a dark warning about the mysteries that sometimes cross our path. John learned the hard way that not everything can be explained or understood, and some roads are better left in the past. The quiet nights he once knew would never be the same. For now, he carried with him the weight of an encounter that defied understanding and logic. Every time he approached a deserted road, a part of him remembered, and he turned away, avoiding any chance of reliving that terrifying night.